I feel like I just look like someone who would be talking about this kind of stuff, and I'm here for it. Hello Sparrows and welcome back to Green Eyed Starlet. If you're new here, hello and welcome. My name is Brandy and I'm trying to live a life worth living through art, movement, and exploration. So thank you so much for clicking on today's video. Thank you for joining me. Today we are going to be talking about empathy and what it means to be an empath. Yeah. I'm like really stoked for this video, if you can't tell. I didn't think I'd be this stoked for this video, but also like today has just been like a bunch of things that are like lining up and making sense in my head finally. And like when that happens, it's the best thing ever. You simultaneously think that you're a genius and going crazy at the same time. It's beautiful. I love it. I love it so much. So hi, hello there. I wanted to make this video because one, I think that the world needs so much empathy right now. And two, for any of my empaths out there, you may be feeling completely drained and like you might be going just a little bit crazy, especially if you don't know that you're an empath or not. So I wanted to make this video about empathy and what it means to be an empath, if you are an empath. There's a lot to this video, so like buckle up and join me for the ride, I guess. Obviously, you've heard me talk about a few times saying that I am an empath, but let's start with empathy first. What is empathy? So empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. Basically, the Brandy definition, or breaking it down a little bit more for you, is empathy is when we see someone going through something hard or something good, and we take what they're going through and the emotions that they're putting out into the world through body language, through their voice, through what they're actually saying, things like that, and then we go in within ourselves and find parts of our body and parts of our past that know these emotions and know similar emotions. You don't have to know the exact thing that that person's going through. You don't have to have gone through the exact same thing that that person is going through to empathize with someone. Now, why is empathy important and how is it different than sympathy? Now, sympathy is another term that you may have heard in the past, my greatest sympathies or something to that effect. And a lot of people go, well, what's the difference between sympathy and empathy? Well, the difference here is that empathy is trying to build a connection between people. Empathy wants to be there for another person, while sympathy keeps this distance between us and the problem that we are sympathizing with. So empathy, good and building connections. Sympathy, not bad, but is not building a connection where we can communicate and relate to each other on a better level. So it's not that sympathy is a bad thing at all. I don't want to build a negative connotation around sympathy, but sympathy generally brings us to the at least comments. So like your friend might be going through a really bad time. If your response to them going through a hardship of any kind is something along the lines of, well, at least blah, 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 blah. Trying to put a silver lining around what they're going through, that's where we are more on the side of sympathy and less on the side of empathy. When it comes to empathy, we have to remember that, you know, our words are not always going to make the difference in someone's lives. Our words and what we have to say, we can't fix all problems with just our words. But being there for someone, showing up for someone, even if you don't know what they're going through, being like, hey, I don't really know what to say here, and I can't completely understand what you're going through, but I'm glad that you're talking to me and I'm here for you. That is the beauty of empathy. It's gorgeous, right? And I will just say, because I don't want anybody to ever think that I'm plagiarizing or taking someone else's work, a lot of what I just said, especially about the at least and the silver linings thing, comes from a video that I watched on YouTube. I will leave it linked down below, from Brene Brown, and I really appreciated how she kind of explains sympathy and empathy. So if you want to go check that out, I'll leave that linked down below. The reason I really wanted to make this video now, before I got really, really excited about making this video, is because I think that the world, especially right now, needs way more empathy. And why I am saying this is because right now we are watching history be made with the Black Lives Matter movement and the civil rights fight that is happening in the United States. The reason I believe that we need more empathy in the world is because I think that sympathy has taken the place of what should be empathy for a really long time and has caused things like covert racism. Because I think when something's overtly racist, we can all see that. Like, we can all be like, that's racist. It's when something is more covert that we're like, is it racist, is it not? And it's little things like that that make a world of difference. Those little things are what we're trying to educate ourselves about and change opinions about. Those are the little wins that make up a massive win. And the reason that I think that sympathy helps covert racism in this case is because a lot of the times you get those at least comments. So people, especially white people, who want to be pro Black Lives Matter, who want to be an ally to the cause, will sit there and be like, yes, I understand what you're going through, I feel for you, I don't think that this is right, but at least you have the right to vote. At least you have a platform on which you can speak your mind. At least yada yada yada. And while I'm not saying they don't mean well, they're not helping. They're not helping at all. The empathy side of it would be more along the lines of, hey, as a white person, I will never understand what you have gone through and what you go through on a daily basis, but I am here for you and I will stand beside you through whatever. That's empathy versus sympathy. Does that make sense? Empathy is such an amazing way that we can all come together, no matter your race, your gender, your sexual orientation, what religion you practice, anything. Empathy can draw us together and allow us to see a little bit more eye to eye. And that's why I think empathy is one of the coolest things in the world. Now, we've talked about empathy, we've talked about sympathy, but I talked about being an empath. And you may be like, okay, Brandy, what does that mean? Well, I'm gonna tell you, clearly I'm gonna tell you. Google says that an empath is a person with paranormal abilities to apprehend the mental or emotional state of another individual. And then it says in parentheses, chiefly in science fiction. And I'm like, Google, why are you doing this? Because listen, everyone can have empathy and understand and share in another's feeling. That is completely normal. I think we all kind of understand that. But some individuals in this world take it a step further and are more in tune with that empathy inside of them. And now there is science to back this, but for my strictly science people, you may be kind of teetering off here going like, I don't know about this, Brandy. This doesn't sound too factual. Well, me as a person is not super factual, just to be clear. I'm very spiritual in the way that I process my life and the things around me. So that's why I don't have a hard time understanding empaths and empathy at all. Giving you a little backstory and a little background into baby Brene. When I was growing up, I used to watch Charm religiously, especially if I was like homesick from school or during the summer. Man, I've seen every single episode. I kind of want to rewatch it again, but we're getting off topic. In Charmed, it was about 3 sister witches, yada yada yada, and eventually they up level their powers basically because they're more in tune, they've been practicing their craft longer, and one of them gets to be an empath, and it is a wild ride for her when she first gets it. That character was played by actress Alyssa Milano, and I've loved Alyssa Milano ever since. But basically, when I saw that first episode, I was like, is that a thing? Because I feel that all the time. And I was like, 8, 9, 10, I don't really know. But that was my first introduction to being an empath and what an empath was. Okay, now I've given you the Google definition, but what in layman's terms or Brandy definition is an empath? Well, to me, an empath is someone who is highly sensitive to the world around them. They are hyper observant, meaning that they pick up on everything. Some people even believe that with proper tuning of this skill, you can get to the point where you can basically read someone's thoughts. Not like read someone's mind, but read the thoughts that are coming off of them. Because it's really important to remember that even though we are, you know, this case, this human suit, this body bag, what do they call it in Supernatural? This meat suit! I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic. Oh my god. But while we are our meat suit, our emotions that grow within us don't just stay within us. They go out. They come off the skin. They like steam off of us. But also our thoughts do the same thing, because our thoughts just come from up here, come into us, we think them, and then either we internalize them and then they become part of us, or we just let them drift off and then we forget things. Am I getting too spiritual for you guys? I don't know, I love it. I don't know if you're having a hard time following me here, I'm sorry, but I feel in the zone. I'll feel in the zone. So how do you know if you're an empath or not? Here are a few things that you might note or might observe in yourself that make you think, maybe I'm an empath and maybe I should do more research about this. Like I said, hypersensitive people, you might be highly observant to other people, their thoughts, their emotions. You might even know how someone's feeling before they even know or before they tell you. Like you might like know someone is upset, and then you're like, hey, how you doing? And they're like, oh, I'm fine. And you're like, Number 3 is you might feel drained a lot, especially when you're in large groups of people or when there is a lot of bad things happening in the world at one time, because a lot of emotions in the world all together ruminate and you're just like, I hear you. Oh. And honestly, for me, and when I see it in other people, a big thing that kind of tips you off to the fact that you might be an empath is if you ever feel crazy for having the emotions that you're having. Like, do you ever feel like, I'm not really sure if what I'm feeling is my own emotions? And if that doesn't make sense to you, then that might mean that you're not an empath. Because I feel like a lot of us empaths will be like, understand that real well. Another great way to kind of explain this is if you're just sitting there in your room, on your couch, whatever, especially if you live in an apartment complex or if you live with roommates of some sort, and you're just doing your thing, you're having a great time, a great day, and then all of a sudden, these thoughts and these emotions of self-doubt, anxiety, dread, any of those things just kind of start rolling in, and you're like, why am I feeling this way? I have no reason to be feeling this way, and yet here I am. And then sometimes, if we're not careful, we can internalize those emotions, and then they do become our own. We have to sit there and be like, I don't think these are my emotions. And then you can like package them up or put them into a nice little box and store them away, because they're not actually yours. You don't have to internalize them. They can be returned to sender kind of thing. But a lot of the times, that's where we kind of feel like we're crazy, because we're like, I'm having a great day, and then all of a sudden you're like, ah! It can make you feel crazy. I understand why I feel crazy. Now, what does it mean if you are an empath? Well, it actually means a handful of really amazing things. A lot of the times, empaths lead into careers of teaching and trainers and counselors and coaches, being there for people and helping people. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things. And as I was kind of doing some research for this video, I realized that it made so much sense about like past jobs that I've had when I got to be a trainer or when I got to like help people out. Those were my favorite shifts. Like, I so enjoy being there for people and showing up and just like being able to help them do something. I don't know why, especially since sometimes I joke around that I hate people. Clearly I love people, and that's an emotion that I need to work on, is like not hiding from people because I have a hard time, but actually loving people and showing up for them. So yeah, if you find yourself drawn to things like being a teacher or being a therapist or a social worker or a counselor or anything like that, you probably have high levels of empathy. Now, just real quick, something I want to go over is really important because, like I said before, everyone can experience empathy, right? And then there are empaths, and then there are highly sensitive people, right? Now, a quick definition for highly sensitive people. Basically, it is a personality trait involving an increased sensitivity of the central nervous system and a deeper cognitive processing of physical, social, and emotional stimuli. So, now I've added just one more thing into the pot here, right? I understand, and I'm sorry, I don't want to confuse anybody, but I think it's important to bring up highly sensitive people because, like I said, everybody can experience empathy, right? Everybody has that ability to empathize with another human being. Empaths are, I would say 99% of the time, always highly sensitive people, but highly sensitive people aren't always empaths. Does that make sense? This is always important to remember because just because you are a highly sensitive person might not mean that you're an empath. You might have a harder time empathizing with people because you are overstimulized, and that's perfectly okay. It's really important to do your research about all of these things when you're trying to figure out what these emotions inside of you mean, you know? Empaths also normally give great advice. You might often find that if you are an empath, people just come to you and talk to you about their problems, even if you don't know them very well. You just have that vibe, that aura that people just want to talk to you and like give you their problems to help them with. And it can be very draining. Don't get me wrong. It is a very exhaustive role in this world. It can be, especially if you don't know how to manage that, and we'll get to that in a second. But a lot of the times empaths give the best advice, and me personally, from experience, there have been moments where one of my best friends was just venting to me, you know, going off, and I'm letting her because I want her to have this moment. I want her to know that I am listening to her. I'm not trying to correct her or anything. And then they do ask, you know, what my opinion is. Do I have any advice? And then I just spew words out of my mouth that are like the most eloquent thing that I have ever heard in my entire life, where I'm like, this isn't me. I'm not saying these words. These words are coming from up there, and I'm not saying like up there, but I mean like up here. Does that make sense? And from the person that I'm talking to specifically, because at my core, I truly believe that we have all of the answers within us. We just need someone to either interpret those answers, or we need to find those answers within ourselves. Wow, see, I don't even know where that came from. I don't know where that came from. Okay. Can you tell I really like talking about empaths and empathy? Oh, I love it. I love it. Where was I? So yeah, empaths give really great advice, and if you yourself are an empath and you haven't like fully dived down into research about empathy and empaths in general, you might say things to your friends sometimes that you're like, I don't know where that wisdom came from. I don't have that wisdom in my everyday life when I need help, so I have no clue where that wisdom came from. That is honestly one of the most annoying things in the world, is when you can give others such great advice, but then when you are dealing with something, you're like, you got anything for me? No? Cool. I'm telling you, it's the funniest thing. It really truly is. Okay, so now we know what empathy is. We know what an empath is. We know what a highly sensitive person is. And you're like, I think I'm an empath, and I hate it. My first few years thinking I was an empath, I hated it. Partly because I think that in Charmed, Alyssa Milano's character also hated being an empath at first because it was overwhelming. But it can be really beautiful at the same time, especially when you learn to manage it and balance it. And those are two really important things about being an empath, is being able to come back to center. Now, I know I've said this in 1,000 videos about 1,000 different things, and it sounds like it's the cure-all to everything, but I truly kind of believe that it is. And that is journaling. Journaling will help you through so much. I cannot recommend journaling enough. And the biggest reason I recommend journaling, and meditating is another thing, which is like a cure-all. Meditation fixes everything. It doesn't. I promise you, meditation doesn't fix everything, but it helps with everything, in my opinion. That is a my opinion thing. That is not scientific fact. But yeah, meditation and journaling. The reason that this is so important for empaths is it allows us to center ourselves and then take a moment. The journaling is important for me, and it always has been, because it allows me to sit there with pen and paper and go, what am I feeling? What thoughts are in my head? What do I think? Those kind of things. Because a lot of the times when you're around even one or two other people, you might have thoughts floating through your brain, emotions floating through your body that don't belong to you. They're just passing by, floating on by, and just happen to pass through. And it's really important to note those things. And when you're journaling, when you're meditating, you can kind of finite tune and discover what your voice is, what your feelings feel like, if that makes sense. And therefore, when you are in a large space, when you are, you know, in a group setting, you can go, la-di-da-di-da, these are my thoughts, and then it's like, hey, what's up? And you're like, that's not my voice. Who are you? I sound insane right now, and I love it. I sound crazy, and I love it. If you think I'm crazy, hi. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day. This was just all for fun. No, it's really important to connect with yourself and be able to balance that. Like I said before, it's okay to package those emotions away. Return to sender, put them away if you ever need to call upon those to help that person in the future, or whatever it may be. But like, it's real important to know thyself first. It's really important to know your inner voice above all else. There is a lot of noise that is just drifting through our brains on an everyday basis that we can talk about at a later time. But you also need to know, like, what is my overall voice? And that will help you connect back to you and be more balanced and allow yourself to sit there and cultivate you and yourself. Because I think a lot of especially younger empaths have a problem when they have no idea who they are. They don't know what they like in this world. They don't know what they want to be in this world because they've just constantly been like freaking waves of emotions and thoughts just lapping against their body and brain on a constant basis, and they don't know to center themselves. They don't know to journal it out or to meditate. I personally have found that since I have become self-employed, since I've been working from home more, and especially like during quarantine and stuff, I used to journal every single day when I used to work at my past job. Every single day, if I was on break, I would be journaling. And it was because I was surrounded by hundreds of thousands of people each day, and I was just kind of journaling to like reconnect with my own personal voice. So that is super uber extremely important. There's a lot of other things that you can do. If you guys would like more information on that, let me know. Leave a comment down below and I'll talk about that. But yeah, obviously I'm very passionate about being an empath, about empathy in general, and I truly do think that this world needs more empathy. I think that is almost something that we should teach in schools, yet I don't know how we would teach it specifically in schools. If you're like a kindergarten teacher or like a first grade teacher and you like teach empathy, like I would love to hear how. I love you guys so incredibly much. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you're not already. Also, leave me a comment down below telling me, are you an empath? Do you think you might be an empath? Are you a highly sensitive person? Let me know. Let's have a discussion. As always, I love you guys so incredibly much. I hope you have a great day, a great week, and I will see you soon. Bye!